Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hi, this is your host, Dr. Russell Strickland, and welcome to An Unconventional Life podcast. Today, I have with me Dr. Janice Weaver, and Dr. Janice Weaver is going to be such a great guest today because she knows what it's like on both sides of the dissertation chair divide. She graduated from Grand Canyon University and then went on to serve as one of the dissertation chairs there, in addition to her continued work in education. So Dr. Weaver is going to be an outstanding guest with us, and she's going to tell us what the biggest hurdle for her in overcoming, that she had to overcome in order to earn her degree, and what the biggest assistance was that she got in that process. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Before we get started, this episode, as usual, is brought to you by Dissertation Done. If you're working on your dissertation, whether you're getting ready to start, you've been working on it for a long time, you might be struggling, stalled, or just plain stuck, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. We'll help you get on the fast track to graduation, finishing your dissertation in years less than you might have thought possible. So reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. Now, if by any chance you've already graduated and you're an expert and you're out there and you want to serve your audience at a higher level, why don't you consider expanding your authority platform by joining us to write and publish your own book. We'll take you from the blank page all the way through to having your book up on Amazon, and you can download it or order that paperback copy. It's a great way to expand your authority, and it becomes a calling card for you. I mean, what better expert can you be than someone who has their doctoral degree and someone who literally wrote the book on the thing that you use to help other people? So visit us at dissertationdone.com/book to find out more about that. But I'd like to introduce you now to Dr. Janice Weaver. Dr. Weaver, thank you so much for joining us here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You're quite welcome. And as I said, I know our audience is going to be thrilled to find out, how it is working on both sides of the aisle as far as the dissertation committee. But yes, what I'd like to do before we get there is kind of talk about what was going on in your life and what was going on in your head that made you decide, hey, I'm going to go enroll in a doctoral degree program. Most of us here have made that decision, but most people out there don't. So what was it that prompted you to decide to pursue your doctoral degree?
Well, at the time, it was in 2012, I was a professional counselor at a residential facility. And I realized at the time that I really wanted to teach, and I really wanted to study more in depth the subject of psychology and understand human behavior from the background and the history of psychology. So there were some colleagues around me who said, I want to get my Ph.D.
Okay. And
I wasn't thinking that far. I was thinking maybe I would get another master's degree. But the Ph.D. was, I was very interested in it because it involved research.
Okay. And
research always interested me. And so I decided to call Grand Canyon University, and there was a enrollment specialist, and he really showed me the benefits of earning a Ph.D.
Yeah.
So it took me a little bit of time because, a Ph.D. I've known all along is something that you have to be in it for the long haul. I really didn't know all that was involved, but maybe if I had, I might have not gone. But
I had a kind of a similar journey. Folks that have been listening to the podcast for a while probably have heard me say this before, but I went through graduate school initially as a traditional doctoral student. And of course, here at An Unconventional Life, we talk about the traditional doctoral student and the unconventional doctoral student, with The
Yes.
latter being adults that return to school while still working full time and having, a family and a mortgage and all of those sorts of adult responsibilities.
Sure.
The traditional student is the one that goes from high school to college to grad school, just
Right.
straight on into the academic career path. And
Right.
and I did that initially, and not long before I was set to graduate, my advisor died very unexpectedly. It was in a plane crash, and
Oh.
I had to do some taking stock and some deciding. Do I want to continue to be a poor graduate student, and literally working like 100 hours a week and bringing home like 14,000 a year or something, or do
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
try to set foot in this real adult world and leave school for a little while?
That's
And
right.
so I made that decision, but ultimately I got called back into school, and I had to decide, well, do I want to get a master's degree in business because that's the direction my career had headed, or since I
Yeah.
already have a master's degree, should I go back and pursue that doctoral degree? And I kind of decided, well, I don't know that 2 master's degrees is a whole lot better than 1, but
Yeah,
doctoral degree
that's right.
is.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's what was in my thought. Well, I can handle a master's degree because I have one,
that's right.
but the PhD is the unknown.
It's a different experience. So
Yes.
so you decided to take the plunge. One of our recent guests said that if you live fearlessly, then you can live limitlessly, which I really liked that little quote.
Yeah.
So you brush the fear aside and you take the plunge into the doctoral degree program.
Yeah.
And what was it like as you started taking those classes?
Well, it involved a lot of writing, and I remember my first class, and I like to write in prose. I like to express things with
Sure.
adjectives, verbs,
Right.
and not always be so concise. So the first paper I submitted, my professor was so confused, she called me and said, Janice, what is going on? Because I didn't know how to write scientifically,
Right.
and I never knew about scientific writing. And so I said, oh, is that what I have to do? and she said, yes, I had to bring in another professor to understand your paper because it was all in prose. It wasn't scientific.
Right.
So once she explained to me what I needed, I had to learn to write scientifically, very
More concise.
concise,
I remember
precise. Yes.
my first published paper I wrote when I was an undergrad, and I was reading all of these research papers while I was doing my work.
Yeah.
And I kept telling my advisor at the time, I was like, these guys all seem like they're geniuses.
Yeah.
But, that can't be. It just, and he said, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, because when I'm doing this stuff, I keep making mistakes, and I try something and it doesn't work, and I try something else.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's what everybody does. I'm like, well, why don't they write like that then? Because I feel bad. I'm the only one getting stuff wrong. And he indulged me, and he let me write my first research paper that way, although he had already admonished me against it. But then when I wrote something about something I had tried and then failed, he's like, what if I just pick this up and I read these 3 paragraphs and then I put your paper down? I'm like, well, you'd get the wrong answer. It's like, yeah. It's like, how many people do you think might do that? Like, oh.
Yeah, that was the most frustrating process for me, is that I thought I was doing my very best, handed it in, and then all this feedback comes, and I'm thinking, oh, it's going to take me forever. I'll never finish.
The nice thing about this is it's much more concise, right? It's actually much easier to do when you just understand that that's what you're doing.
Right.
Don't tell the story. Just tell us what happened. What
get to the point. Just the facts.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I did. I definitely went through that journey of saying, no, I don't like it. These people trying to make
it's so frustrating.
And I eventually discovered that no, this is how you have to write clearly. So don't don't put yourself in position of they're telling you a story at a cocktail party, and yes, it would make them like they're unattainable. Take the position of they're trying to teach you what they learned from the project, and that really helped me a lot.
Yeah, I could see how it would. Yeah.
So anyway, so you go to classes. The very first foray into scientific writing was a little difficult. How did things go after that? After you kind of got a handle on that style?
Well, I started to really enjoy the classes. Now, keep in mind that these were 8-week, one course for 8 weeks.
Right.
And it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But it was the idea of learning to write, learning how to read scholarly articles and compare and contrast them. And now I never read journal articles. You know, that wasn't my thing.
Right. Who does? Right.
So, I mean, so here I am trying to understand journal articles that are written in scientific language and compare and contrast them so that I learn how to do that when the time comes for my dissertation. So it was not only the material in the classes that I learned a lot from that, but the writing part, they still had to work on with me because it's a very long process to get used to that type of writing. And also the process of not let frustration get the best of me when they would say, well, here's the feedback, you need to change this, you need to change that. And
well, that's good practice for the dissertation, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I believe I was in a new program at GCU, and so I was kind of like out there with not much help. And well, with the courses, you have a lot of discussion questions and with other students, and that's part of online learning. And but I had to learn how to use all the databases they had. Right. I mean, you have to learn how to use search terms, and so much it was foreign to me.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting perspective because so many of our students say that, you know, when I went back to enroll in my doctoral program, the classes were easy. You know, I just went right through them. It was exactly what I was used to. It's when that dissertation comes up, so many folks hit the wall. But you're saying there was a transition. There was some growth in the classes as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, and believe it or not, I mean, I find the statistics class because they used SPSS, which is a statistical package software, and I love learning software.
Yeah,
and so they would give us assignments to use SPSS and get the answers. And actually, it sounds very strange because I had a terrible fear of statistics before I went into undergraduate school.
Yeah. I hear that from everybody.
And, you know, when I think here I'm loving statistics, I'm thinking, what in the world happened to me?
Yeah.
But I just enjoyed that.
Common refrain. Most folks are, you know, I prayed to God that I would get out with not my A or B or whatever, and I'll leave it from there. And then we convinced so many of them to do quantitative dissertations because it turns out that they're they're really faster and easier than qualitative. It's interesting how many of our students we do get to even after they swear off statistics, we're like, well, if we help you with the statistics, will you consider a quantitative dissertation? Because it's so much quicker.
Well, one thing I did learn, it was a very hard lesson, is even though I had 2 doctoral level statistics classes, it did not prepare me for when I actually had to use my own data and analyze it and choose what type of analysis. That's where I needed a lot of help.
I see.
The classes did not prepare me for doing my type of research. And how you have to really know advanced statistics. And so it's difficult
with the research design, though. If you plan out your project and how you're going to collect data and the questions that you're going to answer in such a way to make sure that it's relatively straightforward to do.
That's right.
Then it makes it a lot easier. We have so many students that tell us that their university tells them, come up with a question, something you're passionate about. And I turn right around and tell them, forget about all that. Let's answer.
Is it doable?
That's the right. We come up with an answer. The first thing we do is we build what we call the instant roadmap for your dissertation, because I want you punching your destination into the GPS as soon as possible. And that destination really is like, what am I going to do to collect and analyze data?
Yeah.
After you've done that, there's still work to be done.
Oh, yeah.
You're basically guaranteed to graduate. I mean, I don't know anyone who has collected and analyzed their data and then not graduated. Well, that's not true. A couple of people have made decisions to walk away, but that was because of life events.
You're right.
They were completely in control of that decision. They didn't flunk out or anything like that.
Yeah.
I know so many people that feel like there's attrition or they're just stuck and they can't move anywhere before they get to that point. But once you get to that point, when you've collected and analyzed your data, you're home free.
Oh,
Let's start right from the beginning, thinking about that process.
That's true. See, and that did not happen with me.
Yeah. Well, a lot of
that's why it took longer.
At universities are not very results oriented in terms of graduating. I mean, I think you told me that you had a chair that didn't really seem like it mattered whether you graduated or not to them for a long time. Is that right?
No. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So how did that make you feel? How did that color the experience that you felt like your chair didn't really care?
I was very discouraged. I became very discouraged. And I mean, it's not to the point where I was going to quit, but I felt very alone. I just felt so alone. And I thought, oh my, I'm paying all this money.
Right.
I guess I have to teach myself. And so I made up my mind, well, if that's the case, then I'll have to teach myself. I'll have to buy books. I'll have to get on the databases. I'll have to teach myself. And
we hear that a lot. I hear that a lot.
It's terrible.
Particularly that notion of feeling alone.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you were a traditional student, if you were in your 20s and you were at the university working full time, there would be a lot of other students in your department. You would all have offices that you would share. You'd be working on it all day long. And there's, a psychologist here, but there's normative pressure in that case, right? Everybody wants to be like everybody else.
Sure.
And
you can ask questions and not feel like you're imposing on the person.
Which is part of having a community and having that, again, that normative pressure of everybody's doing things this way. Yes, you can go ask other people. You can rely on them emotionally. You can rely on them logistically.
Yeah.
What do I do here?
Yeah. And when she would give me feedback,
traditional doctoral students just don't have. They really do feel.
Oh, yeah. When she wouldn't give me feedback, I didn't even know if my writing if I was doing it correctly. And I started to have very low self-esteem. I thought, oh, this must be terrible. I mean, I'm not getting any comments, no feedback. And it just, I had a very hard time emotionally.
Yeah.
Wondering, doubting myself. I was starting to doubt myself. And I thought, oh my, what have I gotten into? I mean, why can't someone talk to me?
For so many students, that is the first time they really ever have trouble in school. We'll remember back when they were maybe in middle or high school, they had some trouble. But many doctoral students kind of breeze through school, they breeze through college. Master's degree, no problem. Doctoral classes, no problem. But then when you hit that dissertation, that's where so many people, and they have to wonder, is this it? Did I hit the ceiling? Is this what I'm capable of?
Yeah.
Challenged up until this point. So is this it? Am I at my limit? There's no, but it does take some growth and some understanding of what you need to do and how you need to do it in order to make that transition.
Well, I was still in touch with the gentleman that talked me into the Ph.D. He didn't have a Ph.D. And I said to him, you know what? I said, I hope someday you have to suffer through this like I'm suffering. But what you talked me into, I hope you need a PhD, because he didn't have one.
When she first contacted me, one of my students was telling me how she had told her husband the night before to shut the hell up. He didn't know what he was talking about. And I was like, I think you're calling the wrong person. She's like, nope, it says you're the dissertation doctor. I'm like, this doesn't sound like a dissertation doctor kind of problem. She said, well, do you know what he told me? And I said, Okay, I'll buy it. What's up? She said, he told me, you know what? I know you're smart enough. You can do this. And that's when I told him to shut the hell up. He didn't know what he's talking about. It's like, oh. You're right. He doesn't. He has no idea what he's talking about. He knows you, but he doesn't know what you're going through.
That's right.
He's
That's right.
There himself. So that's why it's so important. We talked about this idea of normative pressure before, to have people around you in your network, in your support group that have been there before. It's really
that's right.
Because when I told her at the end of that call, you know what? I think you got this. You can do this. She didn't tell me to shut the hell up. She said, thank you. And he'd known her for like 20 some years. But that's just the way it is. And it wasn't, she knew. She's like, I'm not letting my marriage suffer because of this. So she went up, said, I want some help as soon as that happened. But,
that's that. Yeah. Yeah. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
So what other challenges would you say you faced as you were going through the dissertation process?
Well, when I had to find the site where I needed to recruit participants.
Yep.
And I wasn't told soon enough, this is when you need to get site approval. So by the time it came around, my chair, who I was having problems with, she said, oh, you should have gotten site approval months ago. Yeah. I said, well, it would have been nice if someone would have told me. So I was focusing on community colleges and non-traditional students because that's how I started. I was non-traditional. Mm-hmm. So I called the community college and they said, oh, we don't even have an internal review board. We can't allow you to collect your data here. And I thought, oh, isn't this great? Isn't this great? I get this far.
Yeah.
And I can't find a site. And I thought.
So that's again one of those things that where planning is the failure there.
A failure to plan. That's right.
Let's figure out what's your data going to look like, where are you going to get it from, how are you going to do
That's right. That's right. So fortunately, I have a relative who is a chair of a psychology department at a community college, and he was able to recruit participants for me. But had he not been there, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
Because even though there are 5 campuses where I live, they could not allow me to conduct research because they had no internal review board to allow me to do that. And that was devastating because I thought, I've come this far and you mean to tell me that I can't find a site? Why didn't someone help me with this or tell me ahead of time?
Yeah, so that just illustrates why it's so important to have that person in your network who has kind of seen all the way to the end, all the way to the finish line, and can help you figure out, navigate, and avoid the bumps in the road.
Right. I mean, that's very practical. I mean, yes, I was filled with the thrill of studying something I wanted to research, but you have to come down and realize, okay, how am I going to do that? Where am I going to do that?
Exactly right. I tell students, I break down the research plan into 3 little questions. And it sounds like I'm talking to an elementary school student here, but it works. You need to know, who are you going to talk to? What are you going to ask them? And what are you going to do with their answers? And if you know those 3 things,
good.
Whether it's a quantitative project, a qualitative project, it doesn't matter. I mean, it could even be, a guy out on a production line who's checking to see what the failure pressure of their tires are. I'm going to talk to 15 tires off of assembly line G. I'm going to pump them up and I'm going to inflate them until they blow up. I'm going to ask them what pressure they blow up. And what am I going to do with their answers? I'm going to run an analysis that's going to tell me what the maximum safe operating pressure is. And that's a little bit hand wavy there. We want to be more specific about that analysis, but that gives you an idea for how malleable that framework is. If you just know in detail all of these, who are you going to talk to?
Oh, yeah. That would have saved me so much anguish. Yeah, if I would have had a clear-cut plan, which, it was hard enough doing all this scientific writing and learning research methods and statistics, but I needed someone to help me with a plan.
Yeah.
Now, they have a plan now, but I graduated. And I look at that and I think, wow, where were they when I was there?
So many of our students, I like to use that analogy of a GPS.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that, the way I look at that is like a bloodhound. If a boy gets lost in the woods or something like that, you can take a T-shirt or hairbrush or something, wave it in front of one of these nose.
Yeah.
And then they'll just take that scent and they'll go run with it. They'll just move in the direction that they think gets them closer. They keep following the scent. They're just following their nose to see where it goes. And some universities condone or specifically implore or urge their students to follow this kind of bloodhound approach to the dissertation, where they never know where they're going. They just keep trying to take one step at a time.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to know where you're going?
Yeah.
And then go that way.
Right.
Instead of hope that eventually you'll run into a dissertation as you're just wandering around, following the same path a little boy lost in the woods took.
Yeah, you feel lost.
Yeah.
You feel lost.
So,
yeah.
Well, so you mentioned some of these challenges with the planning, with the committee members you were dealing with and so forth. What helped you finally overcome all that? Because obviously you came out successfully on the other side. So what was it that got you over the hump finally?
Well, towards the end, I studied for 7 years. And before, I guess, about 6.5 years in, I was very tired physically and emotionally.
Sure.
And when I had to start to analyze and come up with a research design and learn how to analyze through SPSS, statistical software,
right.
I realized that I needed to do very complicated analyses that I was not prepared for. So I thought, well, I'll look for a statistician. Well, they're way out of my price range, a statistician. So I contacted someone internally within the university. I said, is there someone here that can help me with statistics? And I was referred to a woman who actually, her career was research and statistics.
Okay.
And when I contacted her and she learned of my plight, she was just like a gift to me, because she said, Janice, we're going to get you through. We're going to get you through and you're going to graduate.
That's what
that just put life into me.
Yes.
I felt like you're talking about tires. I felt like a flat tire.
Yeah.
She was putting air into me, and she helped me pick the appropriate type of analysis, which I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. But she was a statistician herself.
Right.
And so it was a fact that I was proactive. I knew I had to be my own advocate.
Right. That's true.
And the chair I had at the time was furious with me for going outside of her realm to find help outside of that area. And she was furious. But, it was my life and my dissertation and my dream. And so it was up to me to find someone.
Someone who's had their student in school for 7 years is then upset when the student looks for more help. That doesn't surprise me at all, because
furious.
That's the type of chair. Unfortunately, they don't really care what your goals are or how this process is impacting you. They care about their authority and their reputation and whatever it might be. And this shouldn't be a power game at all. I mean, if you're there as a dissertation chair, I mean, your goal should be to teach and to help your students succeed.
Right.
And you better want to do at least one of those things, and preferably both.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And of course, throughout any long-term, prolonged time of learning, things happen in life. I had things happen in my personal life and in my family, and I would bring that up with her, and she said, well, we can't talk about personal things. We need to keep academics and personal issues separate. And of course, that made me feel even worse.
Right,
Because that influences how I study. That influences everything.
Life and their academic life and their work life and their
it's like, how can you compartmentalize it? I mean, it
doesn't work that way.
No.
So we have to deal with that a lot with our students. I mean, it's unfortunate, but life doesn't take a break.
No.
While you're working on your dissertation, and so we've had students who have lost jobs, who've had to move homes, who've had to deal with an illness or the loss of a loved one. I mean, these are very difficult things, and it's important that you can, again, compartmentalize isn't exactly the right word because it is going to affect you, but that you can deal with it, that you can appreciate what you're going through and give respect and deference to that moment, but also remember your goals and your objectives.
Right.
And you move forward towards those. Because yes, you don't get a break or a reprieve from outside influences while you're working on your dissertation.
No, but then once I had this professor who I could tell really supported me. Then my work on my dissertation helped distract me from losing my dad, things that happened that were very hard. Yeah. So it became where working on my dissertation became therapeutic for me. Yeah. Instead of causing me to have a breakdown or just say I'm going to quit.
Right.
It was very therapeutic because I could focus on something that was good for me.
And it sounds a little bit ironic in some sense because doctoral students are all the time saying, I don't feel like I have enough control over my dissertation. I don't have control over this process. But then when something like that happens in life, you feel like this is something I know and something I can control.
Yeah.
Compared to the larger landscape. So
yeah.
That and so many of our students say, well, you know what, my loved one, my dad or whoever it was, wouldn't have tolerated me not finishing this. Certainly wouldn't let me use them as an excuse to not finish.
Yeah.
And that can again become a way to focus by doing that person's memory honor as well as helping you reach your own goals.
Well, I think those people that have support from their family are very fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm a first generation student, meaning no one in my family knew what college was like, let alone a Ph.D. So I really, some in my family even questioned, why are you getting a Ph.D. at your age? And so I really didn't have support from them.
I like that last part there.
Yeah, at your age, what are you doing? And they didn't have any understanding.
Like I do have both feet in the grave, but I want to take that piece of paper and lay my head down.
Put it on my tombstone, And so people that do have family that are supportive of them, I consider very fortunate.
True, that is true. That's very true. And so, and so with all the challenges you faced, finally finding someone who could support you, who could understand those goals and support you through them, that turned out to be the difference for you.
Oh, that was all the difference. Yes. I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
Some things you can do alone, and there's some things a PhD I could not do alone. I realized that.
And no one really does that alone. I know personally I had, when we talk about this notion of the instant roadmap for your dissertation and figuring out exactly what you're going to do right up front. I didn't know that when I started. So I went through and I didn't realize how difficult it would be for me to recruit participants. And I was at the time, and the dean for one of the schools that I was teaching with, I was telling him about the issues I was having. And he was gracious enough to allow me to use that school's student body as my participant pool. And because I had someone who was able to look out for me and give me that assistance, I was able to get past that hurdle and on to graduation. And I think every single one of us can point to someone who gave them some sort of push or some sort of insight or something
Yes.
help them out with this. So I think it's important
Absolutely.
to always remember, to give back to those that are coming after us to the extent we can. But if nothing else, people like you mentioned your chair, just don't get too full of yourself. 'Cause
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand, and I didn't want to be disrespectful. I don't think I was disrespectful, but when she became angry and compared my reaching out for help to the scorched earth policy that I mean, she made me sound like a terrorist, like in the Iraqi War when Saddam Hussein scorched the earth. She used that phrase, and I started crying. I was so upset. I just couldn't believe it.
We're all people, doctoral students, even those who graduate and become doctors are all people. This person obviously has some issues that she hasn't fully dealt with yet. She didn't have someone to help her process.
Yeah, you're right.
I hope that those listening to us who are going to graduate and going to be successful remember, not to take out whatever might be going on in your life on students or other people who are going to come to you.
That's right.
For advice or assistance, because once your first name is doctor,
yeah,
everybody that knew you when is going to treat you the same way, but everybody that meets you after,
that's
going to think of you as a different person.
That's true.
You have to be respectful of that power that you're going to wield when your first name is doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that this person wasn't, because there's no need for that. It's insecurity to not.
Yeah, to think that it was a psychology major.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah.
But learning psychology intellectually is one thing, but learning how to use it and be compassionate and empathic, an empathic person, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reminding me of the psychologist from Good Will Hunting, Sean, that Robin Williams played. It's like, this stuff, I didn't say I knew how to do it. So I know our students are going to be super interested in this part. You crossed over, right? You graduated, you got your doctoral degree, and then you went to the other side. You started batting for the other team.
Yeah.
You became a dissertation chair yourself. So what was that experience like? What made you, kind of decide to do that? And tell us what you've learned from being on the other side of the fence, so to speak.
Well, I didn't want the students to go through what I went through, to be honest. And I love teaching. I love guiding students. I love listening. And the term that I picked up from my dissertation was validation. To validate people, that they need that, because I was on the opposite of invalidation.
Right.
So I really wanted to go back and be the type of chair that I didn't have for the majority of my time. And I wanted to be like the woman who helped me get through. And so when I was given doctoral learners, they said, we've heard horror stories about chairs. And I said, we're in a partnership here, and I said, you put in the work, and I'm here for you. And I said, we're going to communicate through Zoom, because I felt that was greatly lacking. That because that's the only social connection there was that I needed, because like I said, I'm a social person,
right? And
I needed to see the person.
You can't just
talk to them, hear their tone of voice.
In a situation like this, you have to have some way of interacting.
Yeah, I mean, email and texting, discussion forums just aren't enough.
Very different.
And so when they heard that, I mean, it was like the burden came off of them, because they had heard stories like mine.
Right.
And so I said, no, I said, this is, I am with you, and I'm going to do all that I can to help you through this process and not add to it, you know.
So now that you are on that other side, now that you are a dissertation chair, what are some of the mistakes that you see students making that you may or may not have made yourself, but that you can see very clearly now from this perspective, as opposed to being the student on the other side?
Well, what I'm seeing is that some of them don't realize that a dissertation is not the same as a master's thesis.
Okay.
A dissertation involves tremendous amount of reading, and the word they don't like to hear is synthesizing. You know, they don't like that word. I mean, it's difficult. And they don't know how to search databases. And so getting that, there's a specific outline for a dissertation.
Yeah.
They give you that in a template. And a few of them don't understand what is necessary. And so I can't
Most everyone at the beginning. That's
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Well, I have
I
have students that are on there in the beginning. They've had a course before me where they should have known what was expected in the sections, you know, but some are struggling with understanding when they hear the word original research.
Right.
You know,
blow that way out of proportion.
Yeah, and I explained to them it has to do with the gap in the literature, and I have to explain about what that means. And some of them just are having problems with the articles because they are very difficult to read. Some of them, those journal articles. And some of them come into it thinking, well, I'm going to I'm passionate about my topic, and I'm going to tell the story. Well, a dissertation is not a story.
And if you're passionate about your topic, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be appropriately sort of professionally distant. When he starts telling you all the different ways they want you to make changes, you're gonna be intractable, and you just want to give them what they're asking for. So this notion where you know, so many universities will tell a student, go pick a topic you're passionate about. Yeah. You know, no, don't do that. And when you have that plan from the beginning, it helps with so much. You know, you cut down on the number of articles you're reading by 100-fold. Because as soon as you start to skim an article, and you shouldn't read hardly any of these articles anyway. You're scanning them, you're skimming them, and as soon as you start to do that, you can quickly decide, does this meet up with what I'm doing with my project? Does it fit in the plan? And if it does, how does it fit in the plan? And put it in the bucket and come back to it later. And go through, and you can pick up so much literature that way so quickly. Make these decisions. Does this apply to what I'm doing or not?
Yeah, I tell my students, read the abstract first. You know, the abstract is very important because it summarizes
it tells you
the article.
The ultimate spoiler.
I mean, if you read the whole article first and then you come up with nothing, then you've wasted time.
A bunch of time. And the other thing you mentioned is this notion of synthesizing. And I tell you, I want to get rid of this concept that people seem to want to fall back on so much. They like to use this word paraphrase. Doctoral students should ever paraphrase anything. You tell your story, and you use the articles for support. If you are telling me what that article said, then you're doing a book report. That's not a literature review. Literature review is, here's the landscape of what's out there. And the purpose of that literature review, by the way, is just to support the fact that you should be doing your project. No one has quite done your project before, but people have done things close. Because science is very conservative. We don't want to hear that you're doing something brand new. No, we want you doing something a little different. That's what science is. It's people doing things a little different. If you want to do something brand new, your name better damn well be Einstein or something like that. I mean, can't even say Darwin, because whether you know it or not, Darwin was building heavily upon what came before him. But there are people who do something that's really, really new. And there aren't many of them. Rare. And you don't want to be in your company unless you're really ready for that. And if you just want to get your dissertation done, don't look for brand new. Just something a little different.
Yeah, well, I have a student who's passionate about a topic and will find articles that have to do with what he's interested in.
Mhm.
And it's that, like you say, he wants to use it not to build his research. It's almost like he needs to write a book.
Mm.
If he wants to tell a story,
Yep.
and like in the media, he says it's in the media. I said, well, the media doesn't count for a dissertation.
Right. Well, the one thing you can use the media for in your dissertation is to prove that something is out there. You can't use it to say that this is a fact, but you can certainly say that these opinions are out there, these ideas are out there.
Right. That. But it can't be your whole dissertation.
No,
the literature review.
The media is more data than it is source material. It is valid for saying this is in the public zeitgeist right now. You can see article after article written about it in the media. So yes, you've established that it's there. It's in the conversation. But that's all the media is good for.
Right.
You look to
you need primary sources.
Mm-hmm. Peer review.
Primary sources. Yes. Yeah.
So, what would you say is another big mistake that you see students making when they go into the dissertation process as a chair?
Well, I'd say that the passionate part is the first one.
Yeah.
The second one is they don't know how to narrow down their topic, which they should have done, which they should do from the very beginning.
And if you have it in place,
it's broad. I mean, it's so broad that
And when you have a plan in place, that's what takes care of that, because
that's right.
Asking, okay, how am I going to answer my research question? And you say that I've got to work for like 30 years. Like, okay, well, but the first year of that work will be this. So let me make that my research question.
So I have to help them with that plan because they don't have a plan.
Yeah.
So I have to help them with that because, you can't just say, well, I want to study the court system and how jurors are, how does a judge know jurors are biased or unbiased? I mean, I mean, that blows me away to begin with.
They don't move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, I have to help them narrow it because if they don't, and let's say if they they have other professors before me. Mm-hmm. And so let's say they pass them and let them go through and don't correct them. Then they come to me and it's still too broad. The people before me didn't want to tell them. It's tough to be honest with students because I don't want to upset them, but you have to say things to get them on to be on track. And that part is tough because they get upset, and but I try to tell them, listen, this is part of the process. And once you get this done, you'll feel better about yourself and about your work. Just take it a step at a time.
Right.
And don't look at the end line. I've always been told, they came up with it's a marathon.
Yeah. See, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think it's very important to keep your eye on the finish line, to remember at all times why you're doing it and where you're going. Because students are so good at keeping their nose to the grindstone.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're moving in the right direction all the time. We see students kind of just weaving and generally heading sort of kind of towards the finish line. But that's a good way to turn a marathon into 100 miles or 200 miles.
I know.
Wandering all over the course. You want to take the course as straight.
I heard that a lot, though. It's a marathon. I heard that so much,
Well, it is. It is. It's a long process. I mean, our goal for our students is that they finish their dissertation in a year. And we have students that are meeting and exceeding those timeframes, like beating those timeframes, 8, 9, 10 months.
1 year.
Regularly. But you cannot do that unless you make the decision to do that very early on in the process.
That's right.
And it's not going to work for everyone in all committees and all departments. Some universities are inherently slower than others. But But you have to keep focused on what your goal is.
That's
and
right.
for the folks that we work with, the goal is not to be a researcher and go into academia. If it is, your dissertation is important. It becomes the foundation for your research program.
Right.
If instead you want to go on and use that degree to further your career in industry, anything outside of academia,
absolutely,
then no one's ever going to read your dissertation after you graduate. So
no.
don't spend a whole lot of time on it. Don't spend any more time than necessary on it.
No, that's true.
Read it.
That's true, because if you get so obsessed and about it has to be perfect in your way, and you keep disagreeing with the committee, you're wasting so much time on something that's just going to be put in ProQuest database.
Never be heard from again.
Never be seen again.
One of my students, I asked them, well, how many people do you think will read your dissertation after you graduate? He thought about it for a minute. He said, well, I know one. I said, you're talking about your mom? Yes. Like, your mom's not going to read your dissertation. You're going to be nice. She's going to say she read it, and you're not going to call her out on it.
Yeah, and have a career. Try to build a career on that.
You're going to build your career on the fact that your first name is Doctor, not based on what you actually write in your dissertation.
That's right. That's right.
So keep that in mind. And that perfectionism thing that you mentioned a minute ago, get rid of that.
Yeah.
Perfectionism leads to just stalling and frustration.
Oh, frustration is
good enough is prolific. Perfection is not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, Dr. Weaver. Tell folks if they wanted to kind of continue this discussion with you, what's the best way to reach you in the future?
Well, they can reach me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'd be happy.
Dr. Janice Weaver on LinkedIn.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so that's a good place, obviously, to reach out. Again, I want to thank you for joining us and being with us here today, sharing all this useful information about how someone can go from being a doctoral student to a doctoral chair, and the insights that you've gained from doing that. I'm sure that's going to be so valuable to our audience here today. To everyone out there, I want to remind you again, this episode has been brought to you by Dissertation Done. If you need that help to get you over the finish line, whether you are just getting started or you think you're almost there, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done, and we'll see about getting you in our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program, or whatever other help you might need, whether it's editing or data analysis or whatever it might be. Just having that expert in your corner that knows what needs to be done and can help you keep on track and on topic is so valuable, so very valuable. So dissertationdone.com/done. And if you're done and you're already living your unconventional life, then the next step is for you to put out your book and expand your authority that way. Our Expand Your Authority program gets you from a blank page to being a published author with a real live book that you can hold in your hand from Amazon, as well as a Kindle book. And that book you can take anywhere on any other platform you might like. It's a great business card, and what better way to demonstrate your authority than not only being a doctor, but you can truthfully say, I literally wrote the book on this thing that we're talking about right here. So dissertationdone.com/book is the way to find out more about that. Once again, Dr. Weaver, thank you so much. It's been so great having you here today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. And for everyone else, go out there and live your unconventional life.
This has been An Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.